So I was about to go outside and listen to some scary stories in the dark, and then I realized I don't have a Halloween costume. How can I do a Halloween special without a Halloween costume? This is going to be the last second, but I think I'll do the trick. You ready for this? I'm going to abandon draft. I could just call this right here, but I'm going to put a little bit more effort into this. You think this tape is bad for my skin? Should be fine, right? So I figured to start this video off at least, I'm going to listen to some horror stories outside at 1 a.m. on Halloween morning. So if I go missing, now you know what happened to me. Actually, you don't know what happened to me because I wouldn't post this video if I went missing. Oh. It should be fine. I go out late all the time. Now that I think of it, I'm actually more scared of bumping into someone who knows who I am looking like this. Honestly, considering the time crunch, I would say this is a pretty decent costume. I mean, what's scarier to an author than an abandoned first draft? Other than rejection and showing our writing to other people, of course. Anyway, I'm gonna go outside and listen to the Call of Cthulhu in the dark while I walk around the park dressed like this. Hopefully it's not too scary because I'm not a horror fan and I scare way too easily. If this were a horror movie and I had to hide, I would be so screwed because it crinkles every time I move. Okay, the outside world is actually pretty well lit. In the worst case scenario, at least I already got my thumbnail, so if I do chicken out, at least I got that. Not chickening out though. We're gonna listen to the entire story, which is like an hour long before I go back inside. Obviously for this video, I'm gonna be reading an audiobook. I'm not gonna be walking around holding a book. I would just bump into a tree. For those of you who don't think audiobooks count as real books, why does it matter? Like, why do you have to die on that hill? Like, who cares? It doesn't matter if I listen to the book or read the book. The point is I'm consuming the book, okay? I'll read later if it makes you feel better. I'll read later. Thought I heard something. All right, let's go. So I've been at this for like 20 minutes. So far, I don't feel scared. I just feel like an idiot. I honestly think it was more scary in my room. It's pretty well lit out here. Halfway through the Call of Cthulhu, it really isn't that scary yet, but we'll see what happens. A few blocks ago, though, a guy looked me right in the eyes, and I was so mortified. I just looked down. I look like such an idiot. So I finished reading the Call of Cthulhu, or I guess I should say I finished listening to the Call of Cthulhu, and I have not been afraid the whole time. In fact, I felt more afraid in the few moments when the story ended and I was like walking around in complete silence, maybe because I was just alone with my thoughts and I could hear the leaves rustling. But during the entire story, I really wasn't that scared. I'm not saying it wasn't a good story. It was definitely really interesting. When I get back home, I'm going to reflect on it a little more, but I'm not like frightened walking around listening to it. That being said, I understand cosmic horror isn't exactly the most scary horror to listen to while you're walking around in the dark. So I'm going to try to listen to The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe and see if that does the trick. And if that doesn't frighten me, I'm going to go back inside after that, because I have been walking around for like over an hour, and like while I'm not scared, I am getting a little tired. I will say though, right now I just feel like a complete idiot. I also had a weird encounter where if I see somebody coming down the other way, I'll kind of like go a different direction because like I feel embarrassed walking around in this magnificent costume. But like there was like a person walking and I kind of just turned around and I definitely looked like really suspicious. Anyway, back to reading, or I guess I should say back to listening. I'm actually quite impressed that this costume stayed together in like the 2 hours I was walking around outside. I expected the paper to be blowing off left and right, but it all stayed intact. pretty good. Now that I'm back inside, let's make one thing clear. The night of horror is far from over. This freaking picture scares the shit out of me every time I look at it. I'm also going to be playing sounds from the woods to really enhance the fear factor. Because being alone at 4 a.m. just isn't enough. That's a Tuesday. Before I do continue, though, I want to talk a little bit about what I've read so far. Or I guess listen to for those of you who don't like to call audiobooks reading. I liked both the Call of Cthulhu and the Fall of the House of Usher a lot. Ranking them based off scariness and based on which story I liked more, I'm going to put the Fall of the House of Usher higher up. I just enjoyed it so much more. The Fall of the House of Usher is just an incredible story. I remember reading it in school and I didn't really retain most of it. I'm so glad I revisited it. As for the Call of Cthulhu, it was a different type of horror story and I really enjoyed it. I will say though, for a lot of the story, it felt like it was telling rather than showing. And while that does make sense based on the way the story is told, it does put distance between you and the story. I'm going to go read some more popular horror stories now, but first I'm going to take this off if you don't mind because it's kind of uncomfortable. Ow. I will say though, I was pretty happy with the way this costume came out, considering. I kind of looked like Professor Chaos, which ironically, South Park was actually my introduction to Cthulhu. That's a pretty funny episode. That feels so much better. Although if any monsters come after me, I'm without my armor now. I'm gonna get back to reading. I won't lie, I absolutely hate this. I feel like I'm gonna get jump scared any second now. To be honest, I feel like reading in complete silence or doing anything in complete silence is way more scary than reading with a noise. So I just read The Yellow Wallpaper, and that's a psychological horror story about a woman who's being forced to stay in a room with yellow wallpaper for her mental health issues. I found this story to be really interesting. I've always found psychological horror to be the horror that makes me feel the most uncomfortable because it feels the most real. Cosmic horror also works pretty well on me. To be honest, Call of Cthulhu is growing on me as a story. Not that I didn't like it before, but as I continue to digest it, it grows on me. I feel like that's one of the problems with me reading these stories back to back to back. I don't really get the chance to digest them. Anyway, it's like 5:30 now, so I figured rather than trying to find another horror story to read, I thought, why not read one of my horror stories to you? This is a 100-word short story I wrote for a contest that didn't win, but I'm really proud of it. Let me know in the comments what you think of it. It's named Forever Sorry. I am paralyzed with fear, but I cannot recall why. No thoughts exist within my mind. Eventually, I sit up as the hairs on my arms settle. The room is familiar, but something's off. The exit is missing. Then Angela's scream pierces my eardrums. Her decaying corpse lunges out from the closet as it always does. In the moment before she claws at my flesh and I lie bleeding out, I remember. Angela's murder. My sentence. The machine. How many times have I died for my crime? With a gasp, I awake. Not bad, right? Well, I've officially survived the Halloween special. Assuming nothing jumps out at me right now. I think I'm good. Anyway, that's gonna do it for my Halloween special. I wish I could have done more with this video or read more stories, but unfortunately it is almost 6 a.m. on Halloween, so I do have to get this video out for Halloween. It would be pretty stupid to put out a Halloween special in November, but in the future I will be making it up to you by doing a 24-hour horror reading challenge. So please drop your favorite horror recommendations in the comments below. Speaking of horror stories, you know what I just thought of? Imagine how scary it'd be if I was like editing this video and I looked through all those time lapses and all of a sudden there were like figures in the background like stalking me or something. Saying that out loud just sent chills down my spine. Now that would be a good horror story. Maybe I should write that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Happy Halloween.